Can anyone move to a tax haven? Can anyone legally reduce their taxes to as low as 0%? Now, I've been telling you in recent years that the death of tax havens is coming. Incorporating your company on some far-flung island with absolutely no requirements is coming to an end in an era where onshore is the new offshore and transparency rules. But what I don't want you to think is that you are suddenly incapable of going offshore. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through one comment of someone who totally missed the mark and explain why you actually may be able to go offshore much more easily than you thought. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson. If you want to learn more about how Nomad Capitalist helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs legally reduce their taxes with legal offshore structures, setting up their own tax-friendly quadrant, and going where they're treated best, learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Now, I got a comment that I wanted to share with you. This is a nameless, faceless YouTube commenter that made some interesting points. They're all wrong, but I want to walk you through it and share with you to dispel some possible misconceptions that some of you have who are doing business online or who are doing consulting services or anything location independent, okay? So here's the comment. I'm just going to read the comment. What do you think you're doing? Now, before I go any further, this reminds me of anyone who's lived in Los Angeles. Remember the radio host Tom Likas? And he would do this thing where he would tell guys, don't spend more than $40 on a date. And because he felt like these Western women, they would appreciate it. He's thinking, just don't spend more than $40. And these guys would call in who were new listeners. Now, oh, Tom, I'm going to take her to a steakhouse on the first date. And what are you doing, son? And he would talk to them. What are you doing? What do you think you're doing? So that's how the comment starts. Here you go. What do you think you're doing? You are not going to avoid taxes if you move to a tax haven unless you make all, capital letters, all of your income from and in that country, and you renounce your U.S. citizenship, unless, of course, you want to commit crime and become a criminal. This meme advice is useless for U.S. citizens. Now, I used to be a U.S. citizen. I know how it works. We've worked with hundreds of folks who are U.S. citizens. We have a network of pretty much everybody who's good in the offshore tax for U.S. citizens game. But you're right. What do I think I'm doing? Now let's go through this piece by piece because some of this applies to U.S. citizens, some of it applies to everybody. Now you're not going to avoid taxes if you move to a tax haven unless you make all of your income from and in that country. Simply incorrect. Now, it is important when you're going offshore to consider sourcing rules, okay? And this is one of those situations where sometimes the people in the Facebook forums or the groups out there, they make it sound way too easy. Other people like this guy make it sound way too hard, okay? So there are things like sourcing rules. For example, if I move to Malaysia, okay, and I'm not a U.S. citizen, and I want to go buy real estate in the United States, I have to consider the taxes where I'm living in Malaysia. Fortunately, they're pretty easy to deal with on that. They're not too concerned with what I'm doing in the United States. But if I own property in the United States, that is, by default, U.S. source income, right? You're buying something on the soil, and so you do want to consider the source. What happens in today's era is that if you're doing things like providing some kind of services, providing coaching, consulting, anything that lives in the cloud where you're doing work in a foreign country, or you're selling software, maybe you're doing affiliate marketing, even if you're shipping stuff. Now with e-commerce, there are some special considerations that you want to take into mind. Where's the stuff being warehoused? How's it being shipped? From where? How? Every country has their own little regulations. And with e-commerce, you are seeing countries saying, all right, there is a move to collecting at least GST, VAT, sales tax. You are seeing some directives that they're looking to put in place where they would have some kind of minimum tax. Offshore strategies will still exist. They may just become complicated for larger businesses. But you do not have, let's say you move to the Cayman Islands, or let's say you move to Dubai, or let's say you move to here in Malaysia. These are all pretty tax-friendly countries when you set them up properly. If you start a business where you're providing a service to some folks, and those folks are not in Dubai or Malaysia or the Cayman Islands, is that acceptable? Yes. I, when I lived in the United States, would buy services when I was, just researching this Nomad Capitalist stuff before I actually started the business. I buy services from folks all over the world, from lawyers, from accountants, from all kinds of professionals. And if those professionals lived in a place where their tax rate was pretty low or zero, they did not pay more because I was in the United States. Now, I'm not trying to give tax advice to everyone here and just give you the green light. You always want to, deal with your situation. When I have a business owner come to me, we'll generally go through, 100 plus questions that relate to things that are going on in their business to make sure we don't get stuck somewhere. So this is not, advice on a large scale for any particular situation. But this idea that if you live in Dubai, only your customers can be in Dubai is absolutely wrong. Can you sell stuff into other countries? Yes. Now, if you're selling physical products, I've seen people who are in the nutraceuticals or the natural health business, you've got to get that stuff regulated by the relevant health authorities if that's an issue, right? And that's why a lot of people in the natural health business do a lot more business in the US than they do in Europe because of the easier regulations. If you're shipping things in, if you're importing stuff, obviously there could be import rules. But those aren't about being offshore. Those are, you could be running a business selling stuff into the United States from a tax haven, or you could be running the business from the United States and the same import rules are going to apply. Now again, I'm not saying that there aren't exceptions where you have to maybe have more complicated offshore structures and there will be some tax and there's going to be transfer pricing and all that. But what I'm saying is, overall, you can sell things in other countries and not have to pay it. So this idea that you have to make all of your income from it in that country. Now, if the issue is, can I live in the United States and run a business selling stuff into the United States and not pay any tax because I've got a Seychelles company? No, because there are things like controlled foreign corporation rules, permanent establishment rules, minded management, all kinds of other things that vary by country. We've made videos about that. You've got to follow what I call my tax-friendly quadrant. The business needs to be properly offshore, and you, or the directors, or the shareholders, the workers, you need to have a way for them to largely be properly offshore, okay? So can you just sit at home in your country and have an offshore company and use that? No. But if you are sitting overseas, if you have staff, whatever, overseas, then you're able to sell things to other countries. In a few cases, there are things like withholding taxes. Again, I'm not, I think we've covered the fact that we're not giving a blanket assumption. But this idea that you can't sell in other countries is ridiculous. Now, and renounce your citizenship. Do U.S. citizens have special rules for living overseas? Yes. Have those rules changed over the years? Yes. Can you pay zero as a U.S. citizen? Difficult for many. Can you pay substantially less overseas? Yes. And so what I see, a lot of the stuff that you'll read online from, how to retire overseas or, how to study overseas, a lot of the content for expats is around you're moving from the U.S. to another high-tax country. You're going to use tax treaties. You're not going to save any money on tax, but it's going to be straightforward because you're still paying tax. I go the other direction, where if you were a U.S. citizen and you're going to move overseas, you want to move to a place where you're probably paying very little tax. Now, again, we're not making broad statements here, but on a personal level, I don't want to introduce the complexities of mixing the U.S. and the Canadian system or the U.S. and the U.K. system. I want to have the U.S. be the place where if I'm a U.S. citizen, I've got to report, I've got to file, and I've probably got to pay something. And I probably don't want to get into, on a personal level, a tax situation somewhere else. So I'm going to pick from a zero-tax country or a tax-friendly country. And so if I do that, do I have to renounce my U.S. citizenship? No. Is there less paperwork? Yes. Could it be a little less expensive? Yes. But U.S. citizens can go and live overseas. And so people who say, well, new tax laws, can't save money overseas anymore, they don't understand how it works. Taxes in the U.S. for successful entrepreneurs are going to be in the 40+% range. Depending on where you live, if you're in California, New York City, etc., it might be 50% when you factor in all the Social Security and all that. I can promise you, if you go overseas and you live in a tax-friendly country, you're not going to be paying 50%. Okay? Do you have to renounce your citizenship? No. It's an option that's out there. It makes life easier for some people. It's also an extreme solution. It means you can't rely on being able to come back and live in the United States. So if you don't do those two things, he says, you're going to become a criminal. Now, we all know, I'm the goody two-shoes of the offshore business. I like to keep things clean. I like to keep things very white. I like to, fill out all the forms. I don't like to play games. If there's a form to be filed, I file it. If there's a declaration to be made, I make it. Do I agree that U.S. citizens in particular have all these forms to worry about? Do I agree that countries in the Western world are making it harder and harder for their citizens to leave and no longer pay tax as non-residents? No, but it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is you don't want to go to jail. What matters is you want to be clean. And so that's what I always recommend people say, oh, maybe I can hide some money. No, there's no hiding of money. Maybe I should just, not declare that company. No, you don't want to do that. You want to be straight up. But does living in a tax haven make you a criminal? Of course not. And we talk about that all the time here on this channel. Don't listen to folks who don't know what they're doing. Don't listen to folks who haven't done it. Don't listen to folks who just sit around in their basement and comment on videos without any knowledge of what's going on. It's possible for anyone to move to a tax haven. If you're a U.S. citizen, it's going to be more involved, and you're probably not going to be, paying almost zero, okay? If you're from anywhere else, you could pay as low as zero, okay? What I can tell you is by living in these places, you're going to pay substantially less. You're going to have more money to reinvest in your business. You're going to have more money to spend on lifestyle, more money to give, more money to do whatever you want. And over the course of the next decade, that could add up to millions of dollars for some of us. So still possible, still doable. You want to get all your ducks in a row. You want to have professional advice. That is how you move to a tax haven. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.